Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video.
This was supposed to be a happy time for them, Rose thought bitterly. It had been 2 years since the Daleks and the second visit to Bad Wolf Bay. After a rough beginning, she and the Doctor were very happily married, living in Pete's world, and they were having a baby. They were supposed to be living there forever with her mum, dad, brother, and however many children they chose to have. Tonight those dreams had come crashing down around her. Tears flowed freely down Rose's face as she hurriedly packed a few belongings into the jeep. She had changed her clothes, but she was still covered in the stench of the explosion. As soon as she got the opportunity, she was going to scrub her skin raw to try and erase it. Her little brother, Tony, was sleeping peacefully in the back seat, completely unaware of how his life had been permanently altered. She was amazed the boy had slept through tonight events. The doctor, the human doctor, finished securing the aquarium, holding their baby TARDIS into the back. They were in a hurry, and the trio needed to get out of London as fast as possible. "Where are we going to go?" Rose asked, turning to her doctor. "Right now we're just going to run. It's not safe here, may never be safe here again." The doctor pulled her into a tight hug, inhaling the scent of smoke from her hair. "It's what we do best." He kissed her forehead and helped her into the jeep. It had been one hell of a night. One of those nights that Rose wished could just be a dream, or in this case a nightmare. Now that her second wave of adrenaline had started to dissipate, a tidal wave of exhaustion hit her. Closing her eyes, she tried to get some sleep as the doctor pulled into late-night London traffic. In the back of her mind, she could feel his tension and his fear. Someone had tried to kill them tonight. Had almost succeeded too, if Rose hadn't gotten sick at the last minute. The two of them would have been in that car with her parents. Another tear rolled down her cheek as she remembered events that seemed to have happened an eternity ago, and yet she knew it had only been a few short hours. Pete and Jackie had invited Rose and the doctor to some big political party. Pete had just been elected president of Great Britain. While the doctor had been reluctant, he loathed politics, Rose was so proud of her dad that she insisted they go. Rose and the doctor lived in the guest house on the Tyler estate. When they weren't traveling and exploring Pete's world, so naturally they would have ridden to the event in Pete's car. By sheer luck, 5 minutes before they were to leave, Rose got sick. Not an abnormal occurrence since she was recently pregnant, but her bouts of nausea tended to last for some time. So they had waved off Jackie's offer to wait, and told the elder couple they would meet them there. Rose wished she would have known it would be the last time she saw either of them. Closing her eyes once more, Rose was unable to stop the memories. She felt like a teenager again, praying to the porcelain god after a stupid night of drinking. Only this time the doctor was rubbing circles on her back as he held her hair back. This was going to all be worth it when she held their baby for the first time, she kept telling herself. Then the house shook with a violent roar and it seemed like the world had ended. Because in a way it most certainly was. Rose ran in the direction of the noise. Years of Torchwood training and traveling with the doctor had taught her to run towards the source of the trouble. Outside, her parents' car was on fire. Rose could feel the heat from the fire envelope her even as her blood seemed to run cold. Pieces of metal were scattered in the driveway and she hurtled them as she tried to reach the inflamed car. They had to be all right, she told herself. She had lost her dad so many times. Had watched him die twice already, and her mum, oh God, her mum, for so many years all they had was each other. They couldn't be gone. She had been talking to them just 5 minutes ago. Talking, laughing, celebrating the impending newest addition to the Tyler family as well as Pete's election win. This had to be a horrible nightmare. The doctor caught her around the middle before she could reach it. "There's nothing we can do," he cried as she struggled against him. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but they're gone." And she cried, "Mum, Dad, they can't just be gone, they can't." She sobbed into his shoulder, her entire body shaking with grief. The next few hours had passed in a blur. Torchwood, the police and the Presidential Secret Service had been crawling all over the house asking questions, interrogating the staff and looking for clues as to who planted the bomb. Rose had gone into Tony's room and crawled into the 6-year-old's bed. How could she tell him that he was now an orphan? That they both were? She drifted off into a fitful sleep, clutching her baby brother like a lifeline. A few hours later, the doctor slowly opened the door to Tony's room. "Rose," he said softly as he crossed over to her. "Rose, we need to talk, wake up, love." Gradually Rose opened her eyes, and catching the pained expression on her husband's face, she knew that the events of tonight had not simply been a nightmare. He lovingly cupped her face with his hand before pulling her gently out of the room. "We need to leave here, and we need to go right now." The urgency and fear in his voice were undeniable. "I've been talking to Jake. Torchwood received a message earlier today. They didn't understand what it meant, so they didn't pass it along. Naturally, had we known, we would have been more careful, but I'm not sure we could have prevented this." Rose clamped a hand over his mouth. One of the things she loved most about him was his absurd rambling, but now just wasn't the time. Breath doctor, and just tell me what the threat was and why we need to leave now. He closed his eyes and leaned his forehead against hers. His right hand trailed down her abdomen and rested where their tiny baby was growing. The message said, he swallowed hard. The message said silence will fall when the question is asked. Give us the time, child, or it will be destroyed. Hardly anyone knows about the baby yet. Jake didn't even know. Well, he does now. I just told him. Maybe if we had told him earlier we would have been told sooner. I'm so sorry, love. Bile began to rise once more in Rose's throat. Someone was after her baby, her precious unborn baby. But how could anyone even know? How could some probably alien threat know? She was only 3 months gone and hadn't even told her parents until the previous night. Okay, we'll take Tony and leave now. Her voice sounded resigned, running for their lives, par for the course when married to the doctor. We may not come back, take only what we need. I'll let Jake know we're leaving and we probably won't be in contact. He brushed his lips across her forehead. I'm so sorry. I love you and I promise you and Tony and the baby are my top priorities. Even if we have to leave the galaxy, I will protect you. Rose smiled sadly. I know, love, I believe in you. She kissed him and then ran off to pack. Hours later, back in the Jeep, the sun had begun to rise. Tony had begun to stir in the backseat. Rose's stomach growled and the doctor drove on. His face wore the mask of the oncoming storm. He was scared, not for himself, never for himself, but for Rose, their baby, and for Tony. Yet he was scared. Look at what had happened to Jackie and Pete, all because someone was after Rose. Love, Rose said softly. A muscle in the doctor's jaw ticked before he turned his head, not saying a word. We need to stop. The doctor shook his head. Can't, we don't know if anyone is following us. Reaching over, Rose placed a hand on his arm. Love, we need petrol. Tony'll wake up and I'm sure he's going to be hungry and I need the loo. His eyes flicked to the still sleeping 6-year-old in the backseat. What are we going to tell him? Don't know. Rose wiped another tear from her eye. At some point we'll have to tell him that Mum and Dad are gone. I just hope that eventually he'll be okay. The doctor gave a half smile. Course he will. He's a Tyler. Never met a more resilient family than yours, my heart. They were my family too. Silence fell once more in the car before the doctor turned into a petrol station. Once he had stopped, Rose made to open the door, but he quickly locked it. What? She asked. I'm not letting you out of my sight, either of you, at least until we know we're safe. Okay. He stroked a long finger down her cheek. And she nodded. There was no one in the universe she trusted more to protect her, her brother or her unborn child. Yeah, okay, I trust you to keep us safe, doctor. She tried to flash him a reassuring smile, but her face fell when she peered out the front glass of the vehicle. A tall creature, one that looked a lot like a stereotypical Earth science fiction alien, only it was pale gray not green, stood in front of them. It was wearing a dark suit and tie, and had no distinguishable mouth. Doctor, what is that? Rose said, her voice trembling. Before he could respond, the creature spoke. Silence will fall when the question is asked. Give us the time, child, or it will be destroyed. The voice was icy yet spoke with authority, as if it was accustomed to being obeyed. Rose's blood ran cold. There was no way in the multiverse that they would ever give up this child, her child, their child, to anyone. The fury rolling in waves off of the doctor was palatable as he slammed the Jeep into reverse. Unfortunately, they didn't get far. The aliens had them surrounded. The as-of-yet unknown alien race advanced on them, and Rose felt a warmth rushing through her veins. A quiet calm overtook her mind. Suddenly, a bright golden light began to emanate from deep inside of her, quickly enveloping her family and the Jeep. A song reminiscent of the one Rose had heard when she returned to the game station, oh so long ago, filled the air. And with a flash of fantastic golden sparks, the Tyler Noble family ceased to exist in Pete's world. Forever. Leadworth, 1988. The first thing that Rose realized was that her head was pounding. She couldn't remember ever having had a worse headache. The second thing she noticed was this was definitely not the petrol station that they had just been at. The details of what had happened after pulling into that station were very fuzzy, almost as if she was fighting forgetting it. And lastly, she noticed a soft voice calling her from the back seat. Rose, Rose, where are we? What was that yellow light? Tony asked, the last trace of sleepiness fading from his voice. Where are Mum and Dad? Doctor, is everything all right? From the driver's seat, the doctor moaned. What did you do? He mumbled as he looked around, trying to get his bearings. Oh my. He jumped out of the car and looked at the sky. No zeppelins. He could feel the familiar spin of the earth beneath his feet, and it was not the spin of Pete's world. This was their original universe, Rose's Earth. Doctor, Rose queried. Where are we? Leadworth, England, May 1988. He turned back to her, sticking his head back in the Jeep. Back in our home universe. I never would have thought that possible. With you around, though, I think I need a new dictionary. From the backseat, Tony bounced excitedly. We traveled in time, but you said we couldn't do that until the TARDIS finished growing. The doctor gave the young man a sad smile. This isn't the kind of time traveling we should be able to do, Tony. Let's find some place safe and figure out our next move, preferably somewhere they serve food. And a loo, Rose added, getting out of the jeep. Leadworth was tiny, which was a very good thing because the doctor had been forced to park the jeep on the outskirts of town. A car from more than 20 years in the future would probably stick out like a sore thumb. The last thing they needed was to attract attention. He held tight to both Rose's and Tony's hands as they made their way to, seemingly the only cafe in town. Both normally boisterous Tylers had fallen silent. Tony had probably sensed the tension between the adults. Through their bonding link, he could feel Rose's pain and knew she was keeping her words to herself to avoid losing it entirely. Mentally, the doctor ran through his options, running through the people he knew were here and could help. He knew that right now in London at the Powell estate were a fairly newly widowed Jackie Tyler and her toddler daughter alone. His single human heart clenched at the thought of her alive and well. So much time left for this Jackie. He had grown quiet fond of her since his regeneration. Best not interfere with her life right now. It would do no good to unleash the Reapers on top of everything else. There was Jack in Cardiff. As a former time agent, he knew the rules about paradoxes and time streams. In fact, the doctor already knew they had met out of order. He and Rose had met the face of Beau on their first date, months before the Blitz and barrage balloons. He needed to find a safe haven for his family, keep them protected in case the threat to his unborn child had somehow followed them here. He needed someone he could trust implicitly. Jack had proved time and time again that he could be trusted, even if his methods weren't to the doctor's tastes. Too bad there wasn't a way to contact the fully Time Lord Doctor at some point in his time stream after the 27 planets. They would be safe in the TARDIS, even if it would be entirely awkward. Heaving a heavy sigh, he momentarily released Rose's hand to pull the door to the little diner open. "Good morning, sweethearts," a middle-aged woman said as they entered. "Must be the new family just moving in Ta Town, you lot. Haven't seen you in air before and I know everybody. Just sit anywhere you like, be within a mo." The doctor led them to a small table furthest from any windows and close to the back exit. It seemed as though they were expected, and that set his senses into overdrive. This could easily be a trap, but this could also be exactly where Bad Wolf wanted them. The golden light that had emanated from Rose had scared him. Had it hurt her? Had it hurt the baby? He had taken the vortex out of her. It cost him his life, but he gave it willingly. Rose and Tony excused themselves to go to the loo. In their absence, the doctor surreptitiously scanned the room for anomalies with his sonic screwdriver. No alien life detected, well aside from himself and the baby. Another sweep confirmed no alien tech either. After Tony and Rose had rejoined him, the waitress who greeted them, Debbie, came over to take their order. She seemed friendly and curious, but in a gossipy way, not a sinister way. Seemed that everyone in this town knew everyone's business and they rarely had newcomers. She was still gabbing away as they ate. Halfway through the meal, it seemed to the doctor like they were caught up on all the gossip of the small, close-knit community. No matter how close as everyone was, Leadworth loved new faces, Debbie told them. There was a new family scheduled to move into the big house just off town square that had just come available. Moving here from Norway, Debbie told the doctor and Rose. No one knew much about the mystery family, just that a representative from the company they owned had been in town making all of the arrangements for their arrival. The doctor neither confirmed nor denied that they were said mystery family. Things needed to play out the way that they had to. Here she is now. Debbie smiled as a petite, pretty young woman with brown hair stepped inside. "Hello, Tricia. What can I get for you this fine morning?" "Just tea to go, Debs. I'm heading out of town in just bit." Tricia replied, "That's too bad. Enjoyed having you round town, we did." Debbie smiled. But my work here is almost finished. I really need to head home to that man of mine, right terror on his own with the little one, miss him dearly too." Tricia's eyes were scanning the room as she made small talk. Spotting the Tylers, she took a step towards their table. "Just the people I was looking for, Doctor. And Mrs. Williams, it is truly lovely to finally meet you in person. And you must be Tony." She beamed at him. The little boy smiled and Tricia continued. "Sorry I'm late, lost track of the time." She chuckled as if it were a private joke and handed the doctor a business card. "I'm Patricia Newcomer from Bad Wolf Corporation. Glad to see you finally made it. After such a long journey and a mentally taxing night, you three must be exhausted." Looking down at the card, the doctor was astounded. It read, Captain Patricia Newcomer of Unit and Bad Wolf Corporation's Circular Paradox Specialist, and on the bottom right corner were the words Trust her in Gallifreyan. He handed the card silently to Rose, who gasped slightly. Tricia winked at them. So we are all set. Debbie handed her a to-go cup and Tricia handed her several bills as she thanked her for the tea. Ready to go see your new base of operations? Tricia asked the still slightly stunned couple. Have we met? The doctor asked her in a whisper. I've known the three of you for years, Tricia said as she said in the same hushed tone. You just haven't met me yet, it's all a bit wibbly-wobbly. She stood and made her way outside, not looking back to make sure they were trailing after her. They did follow. The doctor had his arm wrapped tightly around Rose's waist as she held tight to Tony's hand. What do you mean base of operations? He asked. Tricia kept walking across the town square. Your new home, it's spacious, fully furnished, 2 stories. 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, newly remodeled kitchen, large cellar which can be used for secret projects, and a lovely garden. Not as big on the inside as you're used to, though it's plenty big for a family of 4, with room to grow should you choose to expand. She stopped in front of a large home near the center of town. Here we are then, Casa de Williams, Molt Benny. It was a quaint house, warm, inviting, but honestly this made no sense. Pulling out his sonic and doing a quick sweep, he didn't find anything menacing about the place. Who are you? I mean really, who are you? To us? Rose demanded, speaking for the first time since they had met Captain Newcomer. Tricia's smile never faltered under Rose's glare as she turned to Tony. Hey little man, how about you check out your new room? I need to speak to your sister and the doctor alone. Just upstairs, 3rd door on the left, go on then. Tony apprehensively looked at Rose and the doctor before the doctor nodded and said, It's fine, Tony. The little boy ran upstairs, quickly leaving the 3 adults alone. Tricia had a wistful smile on her face. I've never seen him this young before anyway. As to whom I am, I'm Tricia. Sorry I can't give my real last name, that would give away too much. Are you our daughter? Rose asked, waving a hand at her stomach. Dropping the entire pretense then, with a small laugh, Tricia shook her head. No. Wouldn't want to risk me touching you and causing a paradox and bringing in the Reapers if I was. We are already on tremulous ground now. I'm not biologically related to either of you, but I'm someone you trust very much. Doctor, you were the one who asked me to come back and do this. So you're from our future, and I asked you to come back and met us here because it already happened. The doctor asked, wanting to confirm his theory more than anything. Exactly, a circular paradox, my specialty. The young woman looked at her watch. I don't have much time before my lift gets here. So important things first, she pulled Rose into a tight hug. I'm so sorry about your mom and dad. This whole thing must be just completely devastating. I wish I had the chance to meet them properly. Rose wiped a tear from her eyes as Tricia pulled away and went to grab an envelope out of the bag she had brought with her. I guess I should explain a few things. Tricia continued in a businesslike fashion. New identities, James, Rose, and Tony Williams. Couldn't risk using Tyler or John Smith. Jack spent ages trying to track you 2 down using those names. It is imperative that no one, not Jack, Mickey, Martha, Sarah Jane, the Brigadier, or anyone else find out you're here until after the Dalek Crucible. We cannot rewrite time. Events need to unfold exactly as they have. The metacrises must happen, and that baby you are carrying must be born of the 2 of you. So we're stuck here for what, 20 or so years? Rose asked. This is a safe place to raise a family, and certain events will take place in this town. Lives need to be shaped right here. I can't say more, I'm sorry. The other woman gave her a smile. It won't be all bad. There are plenty of wonderful memories to be made inside these walls. Thank you. The doctor nodded thoughtfully. We understand. Anything else we need to know? The envelope contains your new backstory, bank account information, deed to the house. No mortgage, you own it outright. There is a new car in the driveway, well new for 1988. Keys are on the key ring by the door. The cellar is the perfect spot to grow the TARDIS. Tricia took a deep breath. Sorry, you gave me a pretty long list, and I'm sure I'll forget something, so there's a letter in there to you too from my version of Rose. Last 3 things, and these are the most important. She turned to the doctor. You can't go by the doctor, at least outside the family. I'm sorry, but you have to use the name James when you are around people who don't know who you are. If you do, Amelia will figure things out too soon, and it is imperative that she figure it out when the time is right. And she has to be the one that puts all the pieces together. Who's Amelia? Rose asked. She is a very lost little girl who will need the 2 of you very much. Find her, that's the second thing. Last but not least, let the fully time Lord Doctor come to you. Even after the Daleks happen, you cannot search him out. It is crucial for his growth that certain events happen for him between when he last saw you and when he lands back in your lives. The familiar sound of the TARDIS engines came from the back garden. That's my ride. Tricia pulled both of them into a hug. Love you guys and good luck. She turned and rushed out the back door. Once again the whir of the engines filled the room. Rose collapsed onto the couch. I wish I could say that was the strangest encounter I've ever had. She smiled as the doctor, well, James now sat down beside her. Honestly, I'm not sure that was even in the top 5. Giving her a small smile, the doctor dug through the envelope they had been given and extracted the letter. Want to know what you have to say to us? He wrapped an arm around her and gently rubbed her shoulder. Might as well, yeah. She took the letter and read it aloud. Hello. I know that the last day has been absolutely traumatic for both you, and it's about to get worse. Because you have to tell Tony. Just tell him the truth. He's grown up with Torchwood and aliens. It'll hurt, but he's resilient, and in the end he'll turn out okay. Promise. Now Trisha did forget a few important things. The list you gave her really was too long, doctor. First, it's probably not a good idea to tell anyone about your pregnancy just yet. Everything is fine. It's just that growing that little part-time Lord baby is going to take a little longer than a typical human pregnancy. 51 weeks to be a little more precise. Sorry. Second, it is very important that you become a licensed child therapist and to slap the doctor when he laughs at you for it. You'll understand one day, promise. Besides, it would be nice to have more than one doctor in the family. Third, River Song is a very important friend, not the doctor's wife. But you can absolutely trust her. I just can't tell you why just yet. You know how the rules go. The first time you meet her, however, you need to tell her enough of the doctor's name to gain his trust in the library. Plus, he needs to be insecure enough about his future to push the two of you together. Today is just full of circular paradoxes. Just give her a chance. You'll love her as soon as you meet her. Fourth, there is a position at the local school for the doctor science professor, and no, you don't have to be a lunch lady. Lastly, this is a small town, so you will need to keep your heads down. At least to the best of your ability. The slow path, a quiet life with some amazing vacations on your TARDIS. Just keep that life in time and space completely separate from the one here in Leadworth. It's vital to keeping that little part-time lord you're carrying safe. Keep each other and those kids safe. Don't worry though. This life that you will share is going to be fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And full of love, hope, and happiness. Love always and forever. Rose Tyler instinctively rubbed her stomach. Blimey, 51 weeks, how far am I along now? 13 weeks 4 days. He replied automatically, and he moved his hand to caress her lower abdomen. At least we know what we're in for though. Can't arouse suspicions in the local gossips, right? 20 year with no contact with any of our friends. A tear fell from her eye as she thought mostly of her mum. 20 years on the slow path. Stuck with you, that's not so bad, at least we don't have a mortgage. He gave her a broad smile. It didn't reach his tortured eyes though. Yeah, better with 2, or in this case 4. Sounds like we'll have the TARDIS to fill in the dull parts and a family to raise. Something to occupy our all that time we're going to have. Rose smiled back and she leaned into him. They sat just holding each other for what seemed like hours. Before breaking the silence, the doctor placed a small kiss on her temple. We should probably tell Tony now. Can't stave off his pain forever, no matter how much we wish we could. Rose nodded and the couple stood and ascended the stairs. Hand in hand, off to break yet another heart. Today, March 1994, Rose sat nervously in the med bay of their fledgling TARDIS. Although she wasn't ready for flight just yet, she was expanding to meet the needs of her family. Right now, the baby TARDIS knew the family needed a med bay. Rose and the doctor had been trying to have another baby for 6 months now with no luck. They had gotten pregnant with Rory pretty quickly. Within 2 months of deciding to try for a family, suddenly wham, pregnant. Time Lord biological imperative. All having to do with his superior biology, the doctor had bragged with male bravado. Not that the trying part wasn't pleasurable, because it was much more than simply pleasurable. Rose just wanted another baby. Maybe a little girl this time. An image of the doctor cooing over a baby wrapped in a pink blanket brought a smile to her face. Another boy wouldn't be too bad though. After Tony and Rory, she had experience with boys. So yeah, a boy would be nice too, as long as the doctor didn't insist that this one be named Alonso. She had just barely won the argument the first time. Turning her attention back to her husband, she noticed something was off. He was worried, she could feel it. Normally the doctor would be flying around the med bed in his usual manic fashion. He never could sit still. Which is why the sight of him slumped into a chair in front of a monitor shook her confidence. What's wrong? Am I dying? She asked, giving him a smile. One of his hands rubbed the back of his neck. No, not for very, very long time, and that is part of the problem. He looked at her with sorrow in his eyes. You're not making sense, love. What's wrong? He pulled the monitor forward and typed a few buttons. 2 strands of what looked to Rose like DNA filled the screen. We are not biologically compatible. That's why you're not getting pregnant. Rose squinted at the screen trying to make sense of the images, cursing the fact that she hadn't paid much attention in biology classes. How can we not be compatible? We already have a son and he is 100% ours, yours and mine. Did he suddenly think she had cheated on him? Was that why he was so upset? Of course he's ours. My hair, your eyes, Rory, Alan, Tyler, Williams, perfect blend of the pair of us. That's not the issue. The doctor was bringing out all of his nervous habits now as he ran a hand through his hair and then tugged his ear. We were compatible when Rory was conceived, but his genetic markers and yours have changed. Your DNA has mutated since then. Every cell in your body has changed and mine has stayed the same. Look, with the punch of a few more buttons the images on the screen changed. This is a strand of Tony's DNA. Closest I could get to your original without having to go to the source. You mean little kid me in London right now? Rose could just imagine herself having to distract Jackie so the doctor could get a hair sample. Exactly, so Tony is 100% human. Now this is mine. He pointed to another image. Very similar to human with that little bit of Time Lord. These are us 6 months ago and this is us now. Another button pushed another set of images. Rose was still following along the best that she could. As you can see, both of us are aging at the normal rate for humans. If he said so, Rose nodded in agreement. Okay, but what does that have to do with me getting pregnant? Hold on, I'm getting there. This is Rory's DNA, well TNA, his is triple-stranded. His is the opposite of mine, Time Lord with just a little bit of human and something else. His is still more human than yours. He is actually still compatible with humans. Maybe. Well, like a 65% chance. Before she could ask what else, he continued. This is your TNA now, see triple-stranded like Rory's. Like a Time Lord's, she asked tentatively. Kind of but not really, it's more similar to the TARDIS coral. His eyebrows furrowed in concentration, she shook her head. So I'm part TARDIS. That didn't make sense, but he nodded anyway. Okay, if I'm part TARDIS, why didn't it happen after the game station? You said that my DNA or my genetics changed after Rory was conceived. He flashed her one of his cheekiest grin. That's my Rose. Always asking the right questions. More buttons pushed. This is your DNA from right before we came back to this universe. Where did you get that? She asked, raising an eyebrow. From your toothbrush. I was worried that something might have happened to you or the baby when you went all bad wolf on me. See, it looks to be double-stranded, but wait. For a moment a flicker of a third strand could be seen. So what my DNA was phasing. She watched the third strand flicker again. He smiled proudly at her. Exactly, it was as if it was waiting for the right moment to change. I think that happened when we came back here. You saw all of time and space when you held the vortex. This was more than likely just the point in time you needed. Rose snorted. If I saw all of time and space, why would I have let the two of us get separated to begin with? Rory, you needed to bring about the events that created Rory. And you needed to know just how capable you were of standing on your own 2 feet without me. Okay, so let's say that Bad Wolf engineered our separation, my dimension hopping, the Dalek that shot you in the Metacrises. How does that explain what happened the night Mum and Dad died? You took the vortex out of me, did you not get it all? Why did conversations with this man always make her head hurt? I thought that I had. Honestly, I did. His hands were now frantically pulling at his hair. I just never checked. Stupid, really stupid, I know, but I was so happy you were alive. You shouldn't have lived. I held it only a fraction of the time you did and it killed me. Rose took a deep breath. Okay, so let's recap for those of us who are not genetic engineers, shall we? He nodded in agreement. Rory and I both now have TNA, not DNA like you and Tony. The doctor nodded again. Rory is part human, part Time Lord and part TARDIS, but he is still probably genetically compatible with humans. Once again the doctor nodded, happy to see Rose keeping up. I am part human, part TARDIS, more TARDIS than human and not genetically compatible with you. He nodded. So that means no more babies for me then. She frowned. Being a mother was one of the best things in her life, and to not be able to have another child was disappointing. The doctor's jaw clenched before he spoke again. You and I can't have any more biological children. However, you still could with someone with compatible genetics, like a full-time Lord. Well, that's not gonna happen, she said dismissively, waving her hand. Why wouldn't it? A bit of anger and jealousy was laced into his voice. He can give you what I can't. You still love him, I know you do. Heaving a sigh, she took his hand and pulled him into a hug. Course I love him, he's you and you're him, but I made my choice. I chose you and I will never leave you, not for him, not for anyone. Okay. Pressing his chin into the top of her head. He began to speak again. I know you won't, Rose. One day, however, I'm going to leave you. She jolted back, unable to believe her ears. You're gonna leave me? Why? You said we'd grow old together. Tear glistened unshed in his eyes. That's just it. We won't grow old together. I'll grow old, wither and die. You, Rose, my beautiful, brilliant wife, will remain as young as you are today. Those changes in your genetics don't just change the fact that we can no longer have children. It also means you're not aging. You and Rory are going to outlive me by centuries. She pulled him closer to her. But Rory is aging normally right now. All Time Lords do at this age. Eventually his aging will slow. One day the pair of you will look more like brother and sister than mother and son. He laughed at the thought of them having to explain that for millennia. This couldn't be happening. One life growing old, that's what she wanted, and she wanted it with the man in front of her. Yes, she still loved the fully Time Lord Doctor, but he had made his choice and so had she. This isn't fair, she mumbled. Nothing you told me tonight is fair. The universe isn't always fair, my heart, especially not to me, although the Doctor may finally catch a break this time. His voice broke over the words. Stop it, she pushed away from him and cried, suddenly very angry. Stop talking like one day I'm just gonna ditch you and run away with him. We all made choices that day. He chose to leave, you chose to give me a choice, and I chose you, remember. If you want, remember when you said that. I've only got one life, Rose Tyler. I could spend it with you if you want, that's why I chose you. You didn't try to run my life for me. Picked you again when I married you, didn't I? I'm not some kind of treasure to be handed back and forth between the pair of you. Rose, I want a very long life with you, 50, 60 years. Maybe even more, but I don't want you to be alone. He loves you, he always will, he'll take care of you and the boys after I'm gone. This was really not how she was expecting this to go tonight. All she had been looking for was an answer on why they hadn't gotten pregnant. Not her husband already planning her next relationship, even if it was to another version of himself. How dare he make presumptions? Look, I get it, I really do. Not being alone. It's what I want for him too, but I won't be alone. I'll always have Rory, and I don't need anyone to take care of me. I'm perfectly capable on my own. And I am allowed my own choices, not be handed over in some Time Lord arranged marriage. You're right, you are more than capable of taking care of yourself, and you are allowed to make your own choices. He wiggled his eyebrows in an attempt to lighten the mood. Poor Rory though, just what every young man wants for all of eternity, his mother tagging along. Fine then. I'll have Jack, he's one of my best friends, I'm sure he and I will be fine. She loved to tease him like this. You would pick Jack over the other Doctor. The Doctor looked astonished. And why not? Jack needs a hand to hold just like the rest of us. Poor man has already been through hell because of what I did to him. Besides, the Doctor has made it abundantly clear that I no longer have a place in his life. He as much as said so that day on the beach. I don't regret choosing you, I never ever will, but I made that choice even though he didn't give me one. I love you. It's just I know how he feels, how he will always feel because I'm him. I remember how lost I was when you were trapped on the other side of the void, and maybe one day you can spare him more pain. James looked pained at the thought of her questioning those feelings. You're not completely the same, though. The difference is you aren't afraid to act while he's a coward. This wasn't the first time they had argued over this. In the beginning, Rose had initially not believed that he could truly be the Doctor simply because he wanted to act on his feelings. After everything she had done, the other Doctor had just dropped her off at home and turned away, never saying goodbye. Why are we even arguing about this? Does it matter right here? Right now, how I feel about him or how he feels about me? I love you. I'm married to you. I'm the mother of your son. Everyone dies, I get it. And one day I will be a widow. Or I could get hit by a truck and you could be a widower. A slow rate of cellular decay does not make me immortal, and nothing you've told me tonight leads me to believe that I'll regenerate. So please, love, please, can we drop this discussion? We can revisit it in a decade if you want, but right now let's just be James and Rose Williams. The Doctor and Rose Tyler aren't who we are right now. Hesitantly, he made his way back over to her. I'm sorry, it's overwhelming thinking about you all alone for all that time. Welcome to my world, Rose mumbled as she wrapped him in a hug. Quite right. He buried his head in her hair. I'm sorry, you're right, you aren't something that he and I can pass back and forth willy-nilly. You are however a treasure, my treasure, and I love you more than anything in the universe. A feather-light kiss was placed in her hair. I agree to not bring up you and the Doctor in that way again, for at least a decade under one teeny-tiny condition. And what condition is that? Rose braced herself for another fight. When the Doctor comes back, and we know he will, that we be his family. I mean, really, he's like my brother, and regardless of what kind of relationship you may want with him after a respectful mourning period of my death, let's say, I don't know, 100 years, he needs us. More than he will ever admit. Relieved, Rose rested her head in the crook of his neck. His family, I think we can be just that. We'll make sure that the boys know all his stories. Well, they're your stories too, their Uncle Doctor. She laughed at the thought of the boys calling him that. She smiled and caught her tongue her teeth. I'm not sure I can make it through 100 years of mourning, though. Jack can be amazingly tempting, and he's still just so pretty. Since you are freely giving me away, afterwards I may just have to fall victim to his charms. Oi, I'm pretty, a pretty boy made just for you. And could you really be with Jack knowing he's gonna go all bow-face on you? He scrunched his face in obvious distaste. Probably not. Now that you mention it, I do need to tell him at some point to remember to make the arrangements for our first date. You know we have 5 billion years until then, right? He teased. Ah yes, married to a time-traveling alien gives me a headache sometimes. When's this girl going to be ready to make a go of it? She stroked the closest bit of wall. Another few months and she can make short trips. We could go to Venice in 1650 or finally make it to New York to see Elvis, or we could have lunch on the moon. He pushed a stray hair behind her ear. Barefoot upon the moon with a Judoon platoon, Rose murmured, remembering the story of how he met Martha. This time there will hopefully not be any Judoon there. Suddenly he turned very serious. We could always adopt, you know. I'm sure there are plenty of kids out there who need homes, need people to love them. New parents that could show them all of time and space. Every kid's dream, right? Yeah, maybe we should. Maybe that's how we meet the mysterious Amelia. Her smile brightened. Let's do it. A dear 7 February 2005, the TARDIS landed with a soft plop, and the boys were bounding towards the door. Tony was 13, and it was Rory's 6th birthday. This trip was his birthday present. A dear 7 was the home to the best circus in this galaxy. One of the best in the universe, in fact. Rose looked up at the time rotor, silently asking if this place was safe. The original TARDIS had a tendency to occasionally drop them someplace that at first glance appeared to be safe, but in fact had a seedy underbelly. After the ship had assured Rose that they were indeed safe, she allowed Tony to push the door open. Immediately their senses were overloaded with bright lights and loud music. Her boys loved it and Rose loved it too. Mummy, can we go see the show? Rory pleaded. I don't see why not. Rose beamed and started moving them towards the booth. Already taken care of, a new voice said from behind them. Turning around, Rose came face to face with a very pretty woman who looked to be middle-aged in Earth terms with incredibly curly hair. Hello, sweeties. I was here roaming around, heard the TARDIS, and figured I'd pick up ringside seats for everybody. Rose turned to her husband. He seemed to recognize her. Good to see you again, River. The woman pulled James into a hug and then did the same to Rose. This must be the early days for you then, the boys are so young. River ruffled Rory's hair. Very early, Rose mumbled, suddenly uncomfortable. In the back of her mind, she knew that today she had to tell this woman the doctor's name and send her to her death. River Song was a complete stranger at this point, yet it still made Rose's heart ache knowing what was going to happen. Dad, who's this? Tony asked. Sorry, where are my manners? Rose, Tony, Rory, this is my friend, Professor River Song. The doctor rocked back on his heels as he introduced the family. Tony extended a hand. Lovely to meet you, River. The woman's face fell for a moment. It carried an expression of despair for a moment before River schooled her features and shook Tony's hand. For me too, Tony. Letting go of the older boy's hand, River dropped to a knee in front of Rory. And you are the birthday boy, aren't you? Rory nodded enthusiastically. I'm 6 years old. Mummy and Daddy brought me here for my birthday. I love the circus. Me too, River said, affectionately ruffling his hair before standing. So, ringside seats. I'm assured they are the best in the house and the show's about to start. Thank you, River, that sounds brilliant, James said with a genuine smile on his face. Gracefully he picked up Rory and began his normal babble of all the facts on the circus to the boys. River smiled as she watched them pass. Are you all right? Rose asked, looping one of her arms through River's and pulling her in step behind the boys. Me, I'm always all right, River said dully with a forced smile. Liar, Rose said back gently. Married to that one, I know exactly what that phrase means. And I know that we travel in opposite directions, so I know what today must mean for you. I'm sorry. River couldn't help but smile. Always taking care of your strays, Rose Tyler. Even when you barely know us, it's good to know that never changes. Come on, let's enjoy today for what it is, the blonde said, trying to give River a winning smile. Yes, let's celebrate today, River said, and they hurried to catch up to James and the boys. The seats were indeed the best in the house, and Rose thoroughly enjoyed the show. Not as much as Rory and River did, though. She spent her time pointing out acts and giving him a brief history lesson on various aspects of it. It was clear to Rose that the two of them would have a special relationship in the future. How River would have a special relationship with all of them as they got older and River got younger. And today would be the last time, presumably, that River would see them. All of their time together was coming to an end for her and just beginning for everyone else. Unless, of course, they figured out a way to save her. The doctor was brilliant, so of course he would figure a way to save her. Rose already felt a connection to the other woman. It was hard to explain, but the woman just seemed to naturally fit into the family. Penny for your thoughts, love, her husband said very close to her ear. It's just this is the last time she'll see me and the boys. She'll meet you again, but that's at the library. She laid her head on his shoulder. We'll figure out a way, promise. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Almost too soon it was time to go home. The show was over and the family had spent hours on the midway. Every single one of them was laden down with the biggest prizes the carnival had to offer. As the group approached the TARDIS, James turned to River. "Can we offer you a lift home?" Tears were pooled in her eyes. "No, thank you," River said with a small shake of her head. "I'd better go." She turned to Tony and Rory. "It was lovely meeting you. I know that we'll meet again soon." Quickly she hugged both boys, her hand brushing Rory's hair back and lingering for a moment. "It was a brilliant day and we're so glad you were here," James said, pulling River in for a hug. "Until we meet again, Doctor," River's voice caught on the words. "Can you give us a minute?" Rose asked her husband with a slight tilt of her head in the other woman's direction. He nodded and ushered the boys and their prizes inside the ship. River gave a small wave, but as the door shut, her hand dropped to her mouth to stifle her sob. "I'm sorry." "Never be sorry because you're sad, sweetie," Rose said, stepping closer and brushing a strand of hair out of River's face. "This isn't the end, trust me please. I know it's a sad day, but it's not the end." River slowly nodded. "I trust you not," she swallowed. "I will always trust you, Rose, always." "Good, now I need to tell you something. A secret you must guard always." Rose leaned forward and whispered a melodious sound into River's ear. The curly-haired woman stepped back in shock. "Was that the doctor's name?" "Yes, or at least a part of it." Rose nodded. "That's not my secret to keep." River protested. Once again pulling River into a hug, Rose said, "I know, but it is vital that I told you and you will know when to use it. I trust you to protect it. With my life." River agreed and pulled Rose into another hug, this time not bothering to hold back the tears. "I love you, Rose. I know you don't know me well enough to return the sentiment, but you have no idea how wrong you are, River, for what you have done for my family in my past and for who I'm sure you will be to our future. I love you too." "Thank you," River said, pulling back and wiping the tears from her face. "I have to go while I can still make myself leave." "This isn't goodbye, this is I'll see you later," Rose said, giving her another quick hug and going back into the TARDIS. Without waiting for the ship to dematerialize, River walked away, programming her vortex manipulator to take her home. "I hope you're right, Nan. Dear God, I hope you're right," she said just before she disappeared from a Dear 7 in a flash of light. April 1996, Rose breathed in the intoxicating scent of her tea. It had been a long day. She had just finished her graduate work and was now the newly minted Dr. Williams, child psychologist. Mum would have been so proud. Today had concluded her first full week working at the hospital. Leadworth was small, so there wasn't much need for her in this community. Just 1 or 2 children, mostly suffering their parents' neuroses. She had to deal with another hospital close by that she would work with their patients twice a month. Overall, the hours weren't bad and she still had plenty of time for the doctor and her boys. The work seemed to be more enjoyable than she had ever thought it would be. At first, this was just about fulfilling some circular paradox. Now she felt that this was meant to be. She was incredibly empathetic, always had been. Always caring about the well-being of others, sometimes even more than her own. Now she had the even more tools to help them heal. She set her tea down on the counter and contemplated if this child psychologist thing had anything to do with Rory's new best friend Amelia. Was this girl the Amelia they had been meant to help? Just then the front door crashed open. Rory came bounding through into the living room. Tony and the doctor were following slowly behind him. Mummy, you will never believe what's happened." The 7-year-old almost knocked Rose down as he jumped into her arms. Rose looked up at her husband and he shrugged his shoulders. "He wouldn't tell me, said we should all hear it together." 14-year-old Tony plopped down on the couch. "I'm surprised you didn't hear about it already, Dad. She was only going on about it all day. Thought everyone knew her story by now. I mean, I heard it, thought most of the teachers knew. Course you always have your head in the clouds," he teased his dad. James Williams was easily the most popular teacher at the tiny local school, mostly because he was allowed to blow stuff up in front of them. His lessons were always entertaining and informative, but he tended to do too much tinkering in his spare time to keep up with town gossip. Always the last to know, or at least that's what he let people believe. Amelia met the doctor last night. Rory was smiling so big his face threatened to split in two. "What?" Rose and the doctor cried at the same time. 2 years ago, the doctor and Rose had begun their adoption search, hoping to find the mysterious Amelia they had been told about their first day in Leadworth. Instead, a little over a year later, she had been dropped off at her aunt's. Much the chagrin of said aunt. Sharon Smith had lived in the village her entire life. Her house had been in the family for almost a century. The woman herself was pleasant, if a bit guarded. There had been a bit of blight on the family only a few months before the Williams family descended upon fair Leadworth. Since then, according to the locals, she mainly kept to herself. Apparently her sister and Amelia's mother, Mary, had run off with Amelia's father at the age of 18. Edward Pond was a Scottish man that Mary had met on a school trip. The big scandal was that at age 33, he was almost twice her age. Older man sweeping a young girl off her feet, marrying her, relocating her to Scotland, and the pair having a baby just a little over a year later. The local tea ladies still talked about it sometimes. Now they also gossiped about the poor misguided orphan girl who had come to live with her aunt in that big empty family house. 8 months ago, when Edward and Mary had died, Amelia was sent to live with the only relative she had left, Sharon. It wouldn't have been so bad if Sharon had shown much affection for the girl. Most of the time she just couldn't be bothered, left her all alone at night and did Lord knows what, ignored her, never hugged her. Luckily for Amelia, she met Rory on her first day of school. And well, the little boy had been, for lack of a better word, besotted with the Scottish girl. Rose and the doctor had been careful to not mention a word of their encounter with Tricia to Rory, and had kept details away from Tony. So they knew Rory hadn't sought her out because of their mission to help the poor girl. Yeah, he crashed the TARDIS into her shed, though Amelia called it his blue police box, said she was on her side and that he had to climb out of the pool in the library. How come our pool's not in the library? Rory paused to take a breath. Mum and Dad are afraid you'll throw one of your hissy fits and chuck all the books in the water, Tony said with a mischievous smile. Would not, Rory huffed, crossing his arms over his chest. Boys, focus please, the doctor said, kneeling beside where Rory and Rose now sat on the couch. What else did she tell you? She said he was tall with floppy hair and his clothes looked raggedy, like they'd been burned or something. Said he went on about new taste buds and kept spitting out foods he said he liked. Must have just regenerated, the doctor murmured. Yeah, and she said he ended up eating fish fingers dipped in custard. Rory continued to babble, ignoring his dad's comments and his shudder at the offending food combination. Get to the important part, idiot, Tony said, looking pointedly at the youngest in the family. Rose slapped the back of Tony's head. Oi, don't call your brother an idiot. She turned to Rory. What else did she say, love? He fixed the crack in her wall, told her it was a crack in the skin of the world. And before he fixed it, it opened up and there was a big eyeball and it said Prisoner Zero has escaped and then it was closed. The doctor fixed it, he fixed everything just like you said he would. Just like you and Dad do, I wish I could have met him. Doctor ruffled his son's hair. I wish that woman would have let me to look at that wall. I knew it sounded suspicious. Rose rolled her eyes. Like Sharon Smith was going to let anyone into that house of hers, even if it is out of concern for sweet Amelia. She's a right cow, she is. But he fixed it, right? Tony asked. I mean, I'm not near as smart as any of you lot, but a crack in the skin of the world, that sounds pretty ominous. Rose leaned over and wrapped Tony in a hug. She had sometimes felt intimidated by the doctor's brilliance. Only now, after more than a decade, had she soaked up enough knowledge to at least follow most of his thoughts. The doctor was a genius, and so was Rory, and she knew that sometimes he felt left out. Looking his son straight in the eye, the doctor said, Anthony Jonathan Tyler, you are brilliant, simply brilliant. Always asking the right questions, seeing things that others would miss, and always putting the right pieces together. Never let anyone tell you otherwise, not even yourself. Thanks, Dad, Tony beamed back. Smiling, the doctor stood up and began to pace. You're right though, Tony, we do need to make sure that the crack is closed. And I think that will require undercover work from our youngest team member, because well, you're the only one that woman will let into her house. I'll build some sort of disturbance detector and let Rory take some readings. I'm sure everything is right as rain because if it wasn't, it would have triggered the sensor I set up to detect temporal disturbances around the house. Maybe I should increase their power because they didn't register the crack. Or maybe it was blocked from them because it had to be the doctor that found the crack in order for him to cross our timeline. And if that's the case, I just hope nothing else is being blocked. Yes, more scans, more sensors. Rory and Tony were laughing at their dad's frantic antics. He still had one hell of a gob. Rose stood up as well and walked over to put a hand on the doctor's arm. Boys, give us a few minutes, yeah? Dad and I have some stuff we need to talk about. Come on, Rory, let's go to park. Tony walked towards the door and Rory followed. The doctor blocked their path. Before you go, I'm sorry, but you can't let Amelia know that you know about the doctor. Not yet anyway, and under no circumstances can you tell her who we are. Rory stomped his foot. That's not fair, she should know. We could tell her all your stories. She'd love them. You've always said lying is wrong. I don't want to lie to her. Kneeling in front of him, the doctor looked Rory straight in the eyes. I know that Amelia is your best friend. I know how much you want to tell her who you are, but I'm sorry you can't. Being a Time Lord is a big responsibility, and sometimes it's a burden. You can see the timelines around her and what could happen if she found out too soon. It's why you didn't blurt it out when she first mentioned the doctor, right? Rory nodded. There are times when we have to lie in order to preserve the timelines. It's not fun and we don't have to like it, but it's our responsibility. One day we'll tell Amelia and then she can travel with us. Anywhere she wants to go, she can pick the first trip. You promise? The little boy asked, his eyes wide and pleading. I promise. Now shift, I need to talk to Mum alone. The doctor stood and ruffled his Rory's hair so it stood at odd angles like his own. Rose couldn't help but think that he was such a good dad, patient, loving, and firm when he needed to be. Her stomach clenched at the thought that they couldn't have any more children together. They had spent years looking to adopt, getting qualified, home studies, and background checks. Now they were just waiting to find the right child, one that needed them. They had met one or two, and according to Rory and the doctor, the child's timeline didn't mesh into the families. And even though Rose couldn't see time the way they could, she knew those children would find happy lives, just not with them. She pulled out of her thoughts as the doctor flopped onto the sofa next to her. Funny, she had been so lost in her contemplations that she didn't remember sitting back down. Blimey, he rubbed the back of his neck. He's regenerated and it sounds like a rough one at that. Not surprised his song was ending. That's what the Ood said. Knowing me as well as I do, he probably ran from what needed to be done. Most likely did some idiotic things, sorry about those. Before it all caught up with him. Must have been bad off, he altered a fixed point in time. Rory and I could feel it. Rose snorted at the thought that this doctor was apologizing for what that doctor had done. Her heart went out to the other doctor though. Once again he had lost everything to the Daleks. Donna her a chance at this family that could have been his, then having to regenerate alone. At least he wasn't alone afterwards. Amelia would have taken care of him to the best of her abilities. She may be young, but she cared so much for others. Is the TARDIS going to be okay? Rose was connected to the ship and wanted to make sure that she was going to be all right. Yeah, she should be, well, probably. She's been through worse, that old girl. Will he? Rose asked in a whisper. As mad as she had been at him, oh, so many years ago about leaving her again, she still cared deeply about him. Yeah, regeneration's always a bit dodgy, but he should be fine. At least this time he didn't end up in a healing coma with your mum tutting over him. Rose smacked his arm. Stop it, you loved my mum in the end and she was quite fond of you. Yeah, he tugged on his ear uncomfortably and his eyes unfocused for a second as he remembered something. Anyway, Miss Amelia Pond met the doctor last night, and she's telling anyone who will listen. Rose smiled. Don't blame her though. Even a 5-minute encounter with him will change your life. The doctor straightened his tie and preened. Well, I am brilliant. Even I would like to hang out with me. Wonder if he's ginger. I can buy you a bottle of hair dye if you really want to be ginger, my doctor. Rose laughed, but after a moment her smile faltered. Why did he come here and not see us? He should have been able to sense us. It was hard not to be hurt that he was so close and still so far away. Don't know. If the TARDIS was in distress, she may have locked onto the location of our little one but then got sidetracked by the crack in the wall. Probably he doesn't know we're even here. But can't he feel you and... Rory, she poked his temple. Up here, not necessarily. He'd be able to feel you too, by the way. Your telepathic abilities have been steadily growing since the dimension jump. The doctor shifted her into his lap. A number of things could have kept him from feeling us. 1. The TARDIS could be blocking our signals. It's been known to happen. Keep the time streams on the right track. And B. He just regenerated, and believe me, that messes with your head. Scrambles you around a bit till you're done cooking. Soon enough he'll be better. 3. One of us could be consciously or subconsciously blocking him out. Rory's abilities are quite extraordinary. Hope he remembered to ask for tea. You were complete rubbish before you had tea. Bit rubbish afterwards too, quoting the Lion King to the Sycorax. She smiled that tongue-in-teeth smile. Oi, I love that movie. I know you were first in line at the theater when it opened. Such a fanboy you are. I just know that when Harry Potter comes out in a few months you are going to be disappointed there's no midnight release. That is one of the greatest works of literature ever. It will be exciting. We have a time machine. We can go to the midnight release of all the books in one night. It's just not the same. Rose smiled. She loved their banter, made her feel normal. I hope Amelia's gonna be alright. She has a pretty big imagination as it is, and now, her Aunt Sharon isn't going to like this one bit, is she? Nope. He popped his pea. There is one thing I can think of that you could do to help. What's that then? He gave a small laugh. Well, Dr. Williams, you don't have a PhD in children's psychology for nothing. December 1997. James stood staring out the window overlooking the back garden. It was Christmas Eve, and it had snowed the night before, so a fresh layer of pillowy white snow coated the ground. Bundled in thick layers, his children played outside. Tony was 16 now, almost a man, at least in human terms. It was astounding sometimes that he had only been 4 when they had met. Even more so that James had been his father for almost 10 years now. It was plain odd to think of himself as just the doctor now, even though that had essentially been his name for hundreds of years. The simple designation was almost as foreign as Theta Sigma. Now he preferred being James Williams when they were on the Earth, living on the slow path in Leadworth. When he, Rose, and their children traveled, he was Dr. Tyler. People sometimes still called him Doctor, but it felt different. Rory waved at his father through the window. In February he would be 9. Smart, funny, brilliant Rory, he was his mother's son in so many ways, his in others, namely his temper and protectiveness. Currently he was helping his new little sister, Sabrina, build a snowman. A few months ago, he and Rose had gotten a call from their adoption agent. A 5-year-old girl whose father had died of cancer when she was a baby had lost her mother earlier in the year. The little girl had no relation save a 15-year-old sister. The girls shared a father but had different mothers. The sister wasn't old enough to take responsibility for Sabrina, so she became a ward of the state. Sabrina was feisty, opinionated, loud, and incredibly smart. Her stature was petite. She had raven hair, blue eyes, and a heart-shaped face. The poor girl had been bounced from place to place, having given 4 foster families a run for their money in the 7 months she had been in the system. It seemed no one wanted her. She was alone and she was special, just waiting for the right family to come along. And although she didn't know it yet, Sabrina was the perfect fit for the Tyler Williams family. Rose and James had been looking for a little girl for years now, preferably one who was older because, well, their life did occasionally involve running. Their adoption agent had thought that the little girl might be a good fit for them but had reservations due to the girl's wild nature. The entire Williams family had taken an immediate liking to Sabrina when they had met her. Tony had declared her sweet but stubborn enough to be a good match for James. Rory had claimed her as his little sister within moments. Later he had pulled his dad aside and said that he had seen their timelines coming together. James had seen it too. Rose was simply enraptured by Sabrina and vice versa. The little girl rarely let go of Rose's hand the entire visit. It had been tragic when they had to leave her that night, but the next day they took her home. A few months later the adoption was finalized. Now the only thing left to do to initiate her into the family was a trip in time and space. James and Rose had decided to postpone it for a bit in order to gain Sabrina's trust implicitly. The ringing of the doorbell brought him out of his reverie. "I got it, Rose," he called out. Rose was in the kitchen baking Christmas treats and making hot chocolate. The children would be frozen when they came inside. Maybe not Rory, his body temperature was lower than a normal human's. The doorbell rang again and then again as if the visitor was in a hurry. "Coming, hold on." "I'm coming," he called right before he reached the door. "Oh, hello," he said as he opened the door and saw Amelia and her Aunt Sharon standing there. Amelia was holding a suitcase and Sharon's car was still running in the driveway. "Merry Christmas." He stepped aside and took the little girl's bag and gave her a hug before she walked past him into the kitchen. "Do come in. It's freezing out there. Amelia, Rose is making hot chocolate." "Thank you, Dr. Williams," she said shyly as she hurried into the other room. Sharon stood fast on the other side of the door. "I'm sorry about this, but I have been called unexpectedly out of town and she can't come with me. Would it be possible for her to stay with your family for the duration of my trip? I should be back right after New Year's." Inwardly James rolled his eyes, any excuse for the old wench to wriggle out of her responsibilities. "Of course, Amelia is always welcome here. The more the merrier, I always say. I know she can be a bit of a handful, so I do appreciate you taking her. Your house is so crowded already with your new daughter. If Amelia is too much trouble, Mrs. Connolly said she would watch her." Eve Connolly was a bitter, depressed old woman who hated children and only kept them around to do her errands. "Nope, she's fine here. All the kids are a bit of a handful and she blends right in. Plenty of room and Brina simply adores her. How's the newest therapist working out?" Since the doctor, the newly regenerated one, had visited, Sharon had forced Amelia into therapy to help with the girl's so-called delusions. Currently they were on their 3rd and Sharon steadfastly refused to let Rose help. "He's quit on us just like the last 2. I suspect I'll have to find another one when I return." Sharon adjusted her coat, looking uncomfortable. "You know, Rose would be more than happy to help. I mean, this is the kind of thing that she studied for. She's local, so you wouldn't have to drive into London so much. Plus, she's familiar with Amelia and her case." James hoped that this time the old bat would relent. "I'm sure that Dr. Williams is a capable therapist for the mild cases we seem to get out here. Amelia's case is rather extreme and requires special care and possibly pharmaceuticals that your wife is unable to supply. In addition, if she were to see Amelia professionally, it would then be inappropriate for Amelia to spend her free time here. And then you would lose your babysitters. Rose is very good at separating her professional and her personal life. Might be nice for Amelia to talk to an adult she knows she can trust." "I will take it under advisement, Dr. Williams," Sharon said with a curt nod. You know, Miss Smith, it gets a bit confusing calling both my wife and I Dr. Williams. We've known each other almost 10 years. You can call us James and Rose. That is not the way I was raised, Dr. Williams. Now, if you will excuse me, I need to get going. She turned and made her way back to her car. Safe travels and have a Merry Christmas. James shut the door. You old biddy, he added to himself. A small voice giggled behind him. Turning, he saw Amelia holding her hand over her mouth. Oh, you think that's funny, do you? She nodded, now laughing full out. As a role model, I should tell you it's not polite to insult your elders, James said with mock bravado. As your friend, I say she's not my elder and I'll call her whatever I like. This sent Amelia into hysterics. What's going on here? Rose said, coming into the living room. Did the old cow leave? Amelia doubled over in laughter, causing Rose to smile. Just left. Seems Miss Amelia is going to be staying with us through the new year. He picked up her bag and handed it to her. Be a dear and run this up to your room. Make sure you brought everything okay. Yes, sir. Amelia gave him a mock salute before darting up the stairs. Rose walked over and he wrapped her in a hug. That bleedin' woman. She mumbled into his chest. What was it this time? Sudden need to go out of town, he replied, resting his chin on her head. Not that I mind keeping her, but Sharon couldn't even be bothered to phone us first to see if we'd be home. Amelia cleared her throat from the foot of the stairs. I forgot my toothbrush. Rose smiled. Well, you and James can just pop by the grocer's and pick one up. We need milk and tea as well. It's Christmas Eve, James whined. The store will be packed. Snorting, Rose said, even if the entire town was shopping now, you would only be in line for 10 minutes. Now shift, you know how I get without my morning cuppa and they close in an hour. Sighing, he walked towards the coat closet. Come along, Pond, we'll leg it. It's only 3 blocks. Luckily, Amelia hadn't taken off her coat yet, so she only had to put her gloves and hat back on. James offered his hand as they strolled down the street. Talking about random things, he liked the little girl very much. She was funny, sweet, and had a brilliant imagination. The tales she wove about her raggedy doctor traveling through time and space were simply amazing. She could make a fortune if she turned those ideas into books when she was older. He had lived that life, but he would pay to read the things she imagined. She was also a rather good artist. He and Rose had gotten her a large art supply set for Christmas, and he was very glad he would get to see her face when she opened it Christmas morning. Each of his children had gotten her a present as well. Tony had gone with the art theme and bought her a sketchbook. Sabrina had picked out a stuffed kitten, and Rory had gotten her a locket. His youngest son had been saving his pocket money for months to buy her the simple gold piece. Inside were pictures of her parents. He had made a copy of the picture on Amelia's nightstand. It was obvious just how attached young Rory was to Miss Amelia. Rose called it puppy love and called them childhood sweethearts. It was incredibly sweet. The pair's topic of discussion had moved on to famous places that Amelia wanted to visit by the time they had finished picking up the necessities at the grocer's. Halfway home, Amelia stopped walking. Something wrong? James asked. He turned around to look at her. Why can't I be a part of your family? Her eyes filled with unshed tears. What had brought this on, he wondered. I like to think of you as part of the family. He crouched to meet her at eye level. No, I mean like Sabrina, you adopted her. Can you adopt me? Tears had yet to fall, but her face was as red as her hair. Oh, sweetheart. Placing the bag down next to him, he pulled her into a hug. We love you, you know that, right? He felt her nod against his shoulder. So you can adopt me, right? Her eyes were pleading as he pulled back to look at her. It broke his heart to hear the pain in her voice. Amelia, you have an aunt who I don't think would take kindly to our whisking you away, no matter how much we want to. Tears were now streaming down her face. She doesn't want me, no one wants me, everyone leaves, Mum and Dad died, Aunt Sharon is always leaving me. The doctor promised he'd be back in 5 minutes and it's almost been 2 years, she sobbed into his shoulder. So many people have let you down, I'm sorry. Honestly, I know exactly how you feel. Just know that we love you, Amelia Pond. And we're never planning on leaving you behind. There are enough of us now that one of us will always be there for you. I promise you, Amelia Pond, that I will make sure that you always have someone you can rely on. The sobs intensified and he stroked her hair. I once lost my entire family and I was all alone until I met Rose. She made me better. Let us make you better. Amelia nodded and her crying slowed down. If you need to talk, we'll listen. We're a family of orphans just like you. Well, not Rory, but the rest of us are. Sniffling, Amelia said, Tony's not an orphan. You're his dad and Rose is his mum. If I tell you a big secret, do you promise to never ever tell anyone? He needed to give her something to know that he trusted her. Yes, I'll never ever tell, she promised, crossing her fingers over her heart. His eyes crinkled as he smiled. Tony is actually Rose's little brother. When Rose was pregnant, some very bad people wanted to hurt her and Rory. I can't tell you why, maybe one day I will, but not till you're older. Well, these people tried to kill her and ended up killing her mom and dad instead. We were scared, so we took Tony with us and we ran someplace safe. It was the truth, maybe not the whole truth, but enough of it that maybe she wouldn't hate them later on when she found out everything. We ended up here, and it's lucky we did because we found you. So it's like witness protection, she asked. James could see the dots connecting in her mind, so clever. Exactly. So you see why you can never ever tell. I won't ever tell, I promise. Amelia made a cross over her heart. Good, he stood up. Now let's go inside and get cleaned up so we can try all those Christmas goodies Rose is making. They started walking hand in hand again. Just outside the house, Amelia stopped again. James, yes Amelia, can I call you Dad? If you don't mind, you're the closest thing I have to a dad, and Aunt Sharon will never let you adopt me properly. Her cheeks turned as even more red than her hair in embarrassment. I would be honored. He held back his own tears, although you probably shouldn't do it around that batty old aunt of yours. Amelia giggled as they raced the rest of the way inside the house. She ran up the stairs and into the bathroom to wash her face as James went into the kitchen. Setting the bag on the counter and grabbing a biscuit, he sat on one of the counter stools. Seeing the distant, haunted look on his face, Rose stopped what she was doing and came around the counter to him. What's wrong, love? Is something wrong with Amelia? That poor girl, he choked out as a few tears slid down his cheeks. Was it something her aunt did? God, I hate that woman sometimes. I swear if she hurt her, Sharon Smith won't know what hit her. What, you'll huff and puff and blow her house down? A slight smile tugging on his lips at the bad joke. She was acting like a mother protecting her cubs though. Nah, more like what big teeth I have. The better to gobble her all up. She calmed down slightly as she played along with his game. Seriously, love, what happened? Reaching out, he took her hand and brought it to his face. Let me show you. He opened his mind to show her. When she pulled back out of his head, she was crying. I wish that we could adopt her. Why did he promise her 5 minutes? I mean, I know he usually runs to avoid the cleanup, but he would never lie to a little girl. He wiped away her tears with his thumb. Don't know. I am a terrible driver. 12 months, not 12 hours, Rose laughed. If she calls you Dad, she'd better call me Mum, otherwise it's just not fair. The back door opened and a very cold, very wet mob of children ran inside. Mummy, Sabrina called. Rory helped me build a snowman, it was brilliant, and then we had a snowball fight. I am so glad you had fun, sweetheart. Now all three of you upstairs and change out of those clothes and into something warm. Rose hugged her quickly. Tony didn't move. You okay, Mum? Looks like you've been crying. Everything all right? He was so Jackie Tyler's son, Rose thought. He was always able to see right through her. Rose dragged her hand across her face. Just thinking about the first Christmas Dad and I spent with Mum and Uncle Mickey. I miss them on days like this. That was true, just not the truth. Tony leaned over and gave her a big hug. Me too, I miss them too. She knew he did. As happy as his life was, sometime her remembered his real Mum and Dad. And he missed them too. That was the one with the Sycorax and Dad lost his hand, right? Since your very first Christmas together was really with Charles Dickens in Cardiff. Rory remembered every detail of the stories they told. He cherished them and dreamed of all the adventures still to come. Sabrina looked confusedly between her parents, not understanding yet. Correct, Rory, although we need to cut the adventure stories the next few days. Amelia is staying with us until after the new year. James smiled, knowing that Christmas had just come early for the young man. Really, where is she? He was practically jumping up and down and Sabrina was giggling excitedly. Upstairs in her room, James replied nonchalantly. Honestly, it was Amelia's room. Rose had decorated with her in mind. Now, all of you upstairs and change, otherwise I'll finish off the Christmas cakes myself. It was a race between Rory and Sabrina to see who could get upstairs first. James trailed after to clean up the mess they were sure to make and make sure their guest was settled. Tony lagged behind. It's not just the ghosts of Christmas past bothering you, is it? So perceptive, aren't you? He shrugged. I just know you too well, Mum. I know the look in your eye when you're remembering our Mum, and that's not it. Want to tell me what really bothering you? I'm so proud of you, did you know that? I mean, look at you, 16 and so grown up. At your age I lived to party, kiss boys and get pissed. Dropped out of school for some idiot boy. Not you though, you'll get your levels, and don't think I don't appreciate how much you do around here. Well, losing your parents in a car bombing when you're 6 does tend to make you grow up fast. He smiled teasingly. Plus, unlike you, I didn't grow up with daddy issues. Been reading my psychology books, have you? Rose laughed. Thought we may need another doctor in the family. Maybe I'll try my hand at medicine, Tony said casually as he sat down beside her. Now stop changing the subject. Why are you upset? Is it Amelia? She wants us to adopt her. She leaned a head on his shoulder. and as much as her aunt wants nothing to do with her, she would think it the height of scandal to let us take her. Doesn't mean she's not still a part of the family, and I would say that you could wait until she's 18 and adopt her anyway. I don't think that can ever happen since it may cause an even bigger scandal though. It's just not right for Rory to fancy his sister. Tony feigned disgust. His attempt at levity succeeded as she doubled over in laughter. They're 8. Don't start planning the wedding just yet. Still have to marry you off first, my handsome boy. Stop it. He pushed her shoulder. Who wants to get married anyway? I'd rather travel time and space with you and Dad. You started it, she pushed back. Now upstairs and change before your dad comes back and really eats all the goodies. You sure you're okay? Tony said, standing up. I'm fine, now get going, Rose said, genuinely smiling. And don't drip on the carpet. Yes, ma'am. He turned on his heel and headed up the stairs. June 1998. Make yourself comfortable, Amelia. I want to go over a couple of ground rules before we start, Rose said as she settled into a chair in her office. Amelia's aunt had finally relented and allowed Rose to take over her therapy after the 4th psychiatrist had quit on her. Not surprising considering Amelia bit him, just like all the others. The poor man had needed stitches. Amelia shifted uncomfortably on the couch. Ground rules? What kind of rules? Nothing bad, we just need to keep things professional when you're here, so I need to tell you what to expect. Rose smiled softly. It's just in here I can't be Mum. You can call me Rose or Dr. Williams. Okay, but outside of this room it's still okay to call you Mum, right? She relaxed ever so slightly. Of course, love, she leaned back in her chair. Also, everything that you say to me in here is just between us. I won't tell anyone, not your aunt, not even James, so feel free to say anything. I won't judge you, we are here to help you with whatever is bothering you. You can tell Dad if you want, but not Aunt Sharon. Amelia curled her feet onto the sofa. What do you want me to talk about? Just about the doctor. Anything you want, really. We can talk about your aunt, your parents, school, anything. We could talk about the doctor if you want, or we don't have to. Are you going to tell me he's not real, too? She tensed again. A small smile played on Rose's lips. Amelia had no idea how real the doctor was, how close she was to his family. Of course not. Because he is real, who else would have crashed into your shed and fixed the crack in your wall? Amelia smiled excitedly. The thing is, Amelia, the doctor is like a really big secret. Not everyone gets to meet him and not everyone believes he's real, so you need to only talk about him in safe places. Like in here. Absolutely, and at my house, we all believe in him too. None of us will think you're making up stories. Rose leaned forward and rested her elbows on her knees. Now what do you want to get out of our meetings? It doesn't matter. She sounded resigned. I'm only here because Aunt Sharon thinks I'm a nutter. Rose shook her head. Course you're not, but that doesn't mean that talking to a trusted adult can't be beneficial. Everyone has something that they want, and most of the time you won't get it unless you ask for it. You promise you won't tell anyone what I say? Amelia said, once again looking nervous. Giving her a soft smile, Rose said, nothing you say in here will be repeated. I want to know why people leave me. Is there really something wrong with me like my aunt says? The other doctors seemed to agree with her. That question, along with the resignation in her voice, broke Rose's heart and made her despise Sharon Smith. That woman seemed to live to destroy this precious girl's self-esteem. It boggled her mind how someone could be so crass to such a sweet girl. Amelia deserved so much more. In the 2 years since she had met Amelia, Rose and James had tried to make her feel special, valuable, and loved. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to completely erase the damage already done, at least not yet. Oh, Amelia, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt said that, and it is very, very true. Together I promise that you and I are going to make sure you believe that's true. Do you trust me? Yes, always. Rose smiled brightly. Fantastic, so tell me what's on your mind. An hour later, Rose and Amelia left the office. It had been a successful first session. Sharon stood from her seat in the waiting area. So, same time next week? Rose queried, looking at Sharon, who nodded. Great, see you both soon. She turned back towards her office. Can I have a word please, Dr. Williams? Sharon said, taking a step forward. In private? Of course, come in. Rose gestured to her office. Please make yourself comfortable, she said, sitting behind her desk. As expected, Sharon refused to sit. What did she say? With a sigh, Rose calmly stated in her most professional manner, I explained this in the beginning. In order to gain and keep her trust, everything said in here is completely confidential, with the exception of her saying something that would lead me to believe that she would harm herself or others. That is not the case here. Rolling her eyes and crossing her arms, Sharon snipped. Fine, can you fix her? Can you make her forget these idiotic dreams of hers? I need her to forget this doctor and never speak of him again. She's causing a scandal. This is a small town and everyone is talking about her. Amelia has some deeply rooted abandonment issues along with low self-esteem. Those I can help her with. It will take time and trust. There is no miracle cure. Rose took a deep breath, time to bend the truth just a little. As far as the doctor, he's an imaginary friend. Lots of children have them, and to her he is very real. This isn't uncommon for children to believe their imaginary friends to be real. She also has a very vivid imagination, but she is not broken. Well, I expect results, Dr. Williams. You are the last hope I have. If this doesn't work, I will have to find a hypnotherapist and force her to forget. Sharon turned and hurried from the room. Rose literally saw red. The nerve of that woman. She acted as if Amelia was just a problem to be dealt with instead of a little girl who needed love. Quickly packing her bag, she hurried out the door. Hopefully, the short walk home might help to dissipate some of the anger she was feeling. It didn't. The front door slammed shut, jarring James out of the book he was reading. That sodden cow, Rose said as she threw her bag down by the door. I cannot believe her, I just can't. She was rubbing her temple as she stomped through the living room and into the kitchen. I need a cuppa. James was on his feet and trailing after her in a heartbeat. Did something happen at Amelia's session? It had been 2 years since the newly regenerated doctor had shown up in Little Pond's back garden. He switched the electric kettle on and scurried to pull out plates, cups, and tea bags as Rose plopped down on one of the counter stools. She's fine. I mean, she feels completely messed up after her raggedy doctor encounter and has classic abandonment issue. But most people do. She let out a small laugh as she took the plate of biscuits James offered her. No. It's that bleedin' aunt of hers, in knit. Her old Cockney accent tended to flare when she was upset. What did the old bat do this time? He'd actually liked Sharon Smith when they had first met, though after the way she'd been treating Amelia since the poor girl had moved here, his opinion had soured. She had ignored the girl, tried to pretend that Amelia wasn't there, spent her nights away from the house, out doing who knew what. That's how the little girl was alone the night a madman with a blue box crash landed in her backyard. Sharon's attitude towards the poor little girl left a bad taste in both Rose and James' mouths. Still, they befriended the daft woman and were cordial for Amelia's sake. That little girl was important. Mostly she needed someone to love her and to keep their promises. They were more than happy to fill that role. After all, the doctor had a thing about collecting strays, especially ones that needed his help. It's just that she wants me to make Amelia forget everything about the doctor. She's ashamed of the scandal that Amelia's causing. I mean, she should be more concerned about the little girl's well-being than her bloody reputation. She took the proffered cup of tea. People have been breaking promises to Amelia for her entire life. Even with all the bad things, she's so clever and so brave. What's wrong with her having a real imaginary friend? Not like it's the first time that the doctor has been a little girl's imaginary friend. Rolling his eyes at the obvious dig at the most taboo subject in their marriage, he asked another question. So what does Miss Sharon want you to do about the raggedy doctor? She wants me to convince Amelia that it never happened and that she should never speak of it again. Barring that, she wants me to help her find a psychiatrist that specializes in hypnosis to make her forget. That woman is barmy. There is nothing wrong with that girl, and people telling her she's making it up isn't going to help her. I mean, Amelia bit the last 4 idiots Sharon brought in. The last one had to have stitches. I don't know why she didn't just have me talk to her in the first place. Amelia is the reason that I had to become a stupid therapist to begin with. James sat down beside her on the other stool. I'm sorry, love, but you're not going to help her forget, right? Course not. She smiled, catching her tongue between her teeth. I told Amelia that of course it happened. How else was the shed destroyed and the crack in her wall fixed? I told her that it's probably best that she stop talking about him to her aunt and the rest of the town, but any time she wants to talk about it she can come here. It's a safe place and all of us believe her. He wrapped her in a hug. That's my girl, of course we'll always believe her. He kissed her forehead and asked, did she remember anything else that might explain why he hasn't come back when he promised 5 minutes? I mean, I know more than anyone about his propensity to run, but not from scared little girls. The doctor keeps his promises, I know. She took his hand in hers. She recalled something about the engine's phasing. Apparently since the TARDIS was on fire when he landed, it was having engine issues. They both winced at the thought of the old girl being hurt. So whenever he does come back, it will have only been 5 minutes for him, more than likely. James sighed. In the meantime, we just live our lives and help out our little lost girl. He traced a finger across her cheek. A mischievous grin lit her face. Where are the boys and Sabrina? Tony took Rory and Brina to the fun fair that's in town. He was going to pick up Amelia and that new girl Mel's along with them. I gave them plenty of money so they should be gone for hours. His hand was now cupping her cheek and she leaned into his touch. Sounds lovely. She closed her eyes, glad they're taking Mel's new patient of mine. She's the Carlsons' new foster. Found on the streets of London when she was just a toddler, no known parents. Sad case really, just another lost girl looking for people to care about her. James pulled her up off the stool. Are you thinking of adopting another one? Could be. The more the merrier, I always say. Rose wrapped her arms around his neck. How about for now we stop talking about other stuff and we enjoy the empty house? She nipped his earlobe with her teeth. See, that's what I love about you, Rose. Tyler, always thinking about the domestic approach. His voice was dripping with innuendo as he nuzzled her neck. Why thank you, doctor. She grabbed his hand, wiggled her eyebrows and dragged him up the stairs. September 1999, good morning, class, James said as he walked inside the classroom and set his bag down on his desk. Good morning, Professor Williams, the class chimed back. Today James was teaching a Year 6 class about celestial bodies. He always looked forward to lessons with Rory and Amy's class. There were only 12 students in their entire year. It made all of his lessons a bit more hands-on, and outer space was one of his favorite topics to teach for obvious reasons. So today we are going to start our journey to the stars. Well, figuratively, not literally. Unless one of you happens to have a spaceship in your basement. James laughed to himself and he saw a corner of Rory's mouth tick up. If only they knew, Rory said inside his father's head. James continued his speech. So in this unit we are going to be learning about stars and their life cycles, the formation of planets, the beginnings of the universe and our solar system. He winked at Rory. Thinking about their own lessons about the formations of planets and the birth of stars. They had been to several such events. It was the absolute best way to learn how everything functioned. Perching himself on the edge of his desk, he surveyed the room at large. Most of the students looked bored, if only they knew what was really out there, just how close the human race was to touching the stars. Most of them would live to see Bowie Base 1 on Mars. The 21st century was going to be such a fascinating time to be a human. Let's start with trivia, shall we? Who can name all the planets in the solar system? James asked the class at large, one or two hands raised into the air. James pointed at a blonde girl in the back. Yes, Katie. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. She listed them timidly. Very good, all the correct names, little problem with the order though. It goes Jupiter and then Saturn, but very good, Katie. James beamed at her. Humans always need the ego stroke, especially children. Or so Rose kept telling him. Correct their mistakes but never rub their noses in it, she always said. Next question, just to see how much everyone knows already. What is a dwarf star? No one raised their hands this time. Rory, I know that you know this, he said aloud, but thought to him, keep it relatively simple. A dwarf star is actually a term for a variety of distinct classes of stars, all with a luminosity class of 5. It includes red, yellow, blue, white, black and brown dwarf stars. He sounded rather bored. Can we go and have a look at some real ones? It's more exciting that way, not just pictures in a book. Sure, next trip out we'll stop by a couple. A little educational trip before we head to Raxus 7, and the largest carnival in the universe should make for a fun weekend. Out loud, James chuckled. Thank you for the textbook definition. Don't worry, class. By the end of the unit, I'll make sure we all understand what that means. Probably, well, most of you should have a general understanding of the concept. Alright, last bit of trivia before we get started on today's lesson. Does anyone know how black holes are created? Again, no hands were raised. These kids apparently had a lot to learn. It was his fault, really. He had been the primary science teacher of almost all of them since they had started school. Alright, no volunteers, I'll just have to pick on one of you. How about, he flicked his eyes around the room. Mel's your turn. How are black holes created? He knew it was a mistake the minute it came out of his mouth. Mel stood, crossed her arms over her chest, and with a defiant look in her eye spoke evenly. Black holes were created because the doctor wanted them to exist. Rory and Amelia rolled their eyes while the rest of the class burst into a fit of giggles at Mel's standard-type answer. Well, they do exist because Time Lords created them, Rory thought. True, but she shouldn't know that, and I'm sure that's not what she meant. Trying to gain control over the class again, James raised his voice about the laughter. All right, settle down everyone, books out. I want everyone reading pages 423 to 436 to themselves silently while I have a word with Mel's in the corridor. Still standing, Mel's turned and headed out of the door. James followed behind her, wishing that A, he had never asked her to answer the question, or B, that she would stop giving the answer to everything as the doctor. Behind him, the class had started to talk in whispers, until James quieted them with a stern look before shutting the door in his wake. Sit down, please. He gestured to a bench in the hall. Sometimes he wondered if the maintenance staff had put it there just for such occasions. Sighing, he stared at the young girl for a moment. At 10 years old, she had already had such a hard life. found on the streets as a toddler. No parents or any other relatives had ever been located. No one even knew her real last name. Honestly, James was surprised that they hadn't just called her Jane Doe instead of Melody Jones. 12 foster homes had turned her out already for her defiant behavior, and it had taken a miracle worked by James and Rose to keep her at the Carlsons. For some unknown reason, Mel's was ineligible for adoption, and some quirk in their paperwork kept them from being an eligible foster family. Rose saw her as a patient twice a week, although the sessions amounted to very little other than keeping Mel's out of serious trouble. James did his part by running interference at the school and making sure she didn't get expelled. There was just something about her, something no one could put their finger on, that made them care so much. It was like they needed her to be near them. "You have to stop this," James said quietly. "You can't keep disrupting classes with your answers that the doctor is responsible for everything. Amy's stories are wonderful, but you know it's best not to bring him up in school. He is responsible for loads of stuff though. You know he's real and that he's marvelous." There was something a little too knowing in her smirk. "I never said he wasn't real, Mel's. Just that we need to exercise caution when we speak about him." It would have been futile to deny the existence of the man Mel seemed to idolize. She spent too much time around his house to do that. James and Rose encouraged all of the children's imagination. They encouraged them to have make-believe adventures with the doctor. There is a time and a place for everything. Trust me, I know all about bending and breaking rules. Never really met a rule that I liked, but some of them need to be respected. Let's just keep in line enough that we get to keep you here. All right? Fine, I mean yes, Professor Williams. Mel sighed as she stood up. Can I go back to class now? Yes, go read the chapter with everyone else. Just behave, please. Mel's rolled her eyes, and neither agreeing nor disagreeing to behave, she headed back into the classroom. Sitting in quiet contemplation for a few moments, he realized just how similar she was to himself when he was younger. Dragging a hand through his hair, he stood and went back to face his class. After the class had concluded, Rory joined Amy and Mel's at their normal lunch table. The girls seemed to be in a deep discussion about some show from the telly that Rory was in no way interested in. Honestly, he hardly ever watched telly. He liked to spend his downtime reading, tinkering with the TARDIS, or continuing his cosmic education. Still, he feigned interest, nodding his head at the appropriate times, adding a comment when necessary. "This weekend my aunt is dragging me to London for some big wedding of my third cousin or something. Sounds dead exciting to me, meeting more extended family and keeping up appearances," Amy said, rolling her eyes. Gently her fingers played with the locket Rory had given her for Christmas 2 years ago. It was a nervous habit she picked up, mainly doing it when she missed her parents. "What do you two have planned?" "Nothing," Mel said flatly. "Probably sitting around watching old Miss Carlson knit one of those ugly sweaters and having to read that stupid book for class." "Whatcha doing, Rory?" "Something brilliant, I suppose." He swallowed down the bite he had taken. "Nah, educational stuff mostly. Dad's keen on a trip to the planetarium to study dwarf stars." Truthfully, they were going to orbit one, and Dad was going to sit in the open TARDIS doorway with him and Sabrina, telling them the wonders of the cosmos. Speaking of his little sister, she slid in next to him. "Yeah. And then we're going to go visit Tony at uni and take him out to dinner." She beamed, knowing they would probably be gone closer to a week than just a weekend. Dad promised Raxus 7, and that would take days to see. While the girls nattered on, Rory fondly recalled Sabrina's first trip into space. She had been with them almost a year. Every night before bed, Mum and Dad had told her an adventure story about their travels. All the time she had thought it was make-believe. Then one day they took her to the moon colony, in 3572. Sabrina was only 6 at the time, and in her innocence had never really questioned that her adopted family could travel in time and space. Her eyes went huge as the family stood on the viewing platform overlooking the Earth. "Am I dreaming?" she asked quietly. "No, love, you're not," Mum said quietly. "This is all real, and traveling like this is something that we will do often. Instead of learning history out of a book, we can see it happen. We will visit hundreds of planets and galaxies. It's a gift, and it's a secret." Tony squatted down to her level and looked her in the eyes. "This is something that everyone would do just about anything to experience, but not everyone can, so everything we see when we go on our adventures has to stay in the family. Do you understand?" It was vital that she understand the rules. Stepping around her oldest brother, Sabrina put her hand on the window. "If I tell I can't come anymore?" she asked quietly. "Will you send me back to the foster homes if I tell?" Dad put a hand on her shoulder. "Oh, Sabrina, you belong to us no matter what. We never plan on sending you away. But yes, if you tell, none of us will be able to go anymore. We are a family, we go together." Sabrina swallowed down the lump in her throat before she spoke again. This is like Amy's raggedy doctor, isn't it? He's really real. Mum ran a hand through her hair. Of course he's real. I used to travel with him, met him when I was 19. He had just lost his whole family, all of his people. He was all alone. Like me? She asked softly. Yes, sweetheart, until like you he met me. I traveled with him for 2 years, then we were separated. During the time we were apart, Tony was born. Mum continued. Because Tony is actually your baby brother, Sabrina asked, putting together all the pieces of information she had been given. Exactly. After the doctor and I got separated, I worked very hard to find him again. Did you find him? I did. Save the universe together. Mum smiled as Dad slipped a hand into hers. Rory loved the story of the stars going out. Millions of Daleks and his parents had stood up to them without hesitating. His parents were the bravest people in the universe. Sabrina looked up at Mum. Then what happened? Rory could hear the wonder in her voice. Where is the doctor now? Why aren't you with him now, Mummy? Dad spoke up now. Oh, he's out there somewhere having his own adventures. Maybe one day our paths will meet again. As for why she'd not with him now, well, she married his brother. Dad flashed Sabrina his best smile. Her eyes got big as she locked the final pieces in place. But you said his whole family died. How are you his brother? It's a long story, sweetheart. One we can save for another day, Mum said, once again stroking her hair. Does Amy know? Can she come with us on an adventure? She was bouncing on the balls of her feet. Dad shook his head. There are rules about who we can tell. Right now we can't tell Amelia. One day we will, and she can travel the stars with us, just not right now. Sabrina nodded slightly in agreement but didn't say anything. There was an uneasy silence for a long moment. So how about lunch on the moon? Dad asked, herding the family towards a restaurant nearby. The rest of the afternoon had been spent with Sabrina peppering them with questions and Dad telling her all the places they were going to go. Rory, oi, stupid face. Are you all right? Amelia asked, waving a hand in front of his face. You were a million miles away. If only she knew, he thought. Sorry, I was just thinking about Sabrina's first educational family outing, as Dad calls them. Sabrina smiled at him, remembering as well. I'd love to take an educational trip over this stupid family wedding. I don't even know the people getting married. Maybe I can beg a trip to the British Museum out of Aunt Sharon. If I ask in front of enough people, she's bound to cave, just to keep up appearances. Amelia rolled her eyes. Oh, if you do go, check out the ancient statues in the Roman history wing. There's one of the goddess Fortuna in there that looks just like Mum, Sabrina said with a laugh. Rory then kicked her under the table and gave her his best glare. It got him thinking, though. He'd have to talk to Dad and see if they could make a trip to Rome. It would be a riot to see all those centurions at the height of the empire. Just then the lunch bell rang and the quartet broke up. Sabrina left to rejoin her class and Amelia, Mel's and Rory went on to theirs. The trio was now chatting about all the fun things to do in London. One day the three of them would take London and the universe by storm. Rory would make sure of it.